Hey, my name is Janica, and today I have my May wrap-up. This wasn't my biggest reading month, but I did read some really good books. The first one that I picked up was A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki. This was a book that I've been meaning to read for a while, and when I went to the library I saw it on a cart of books to be reshelved. Every time I walked by it, it was like it was just begging me to pick it up, so I had to, and I'm so glad I did because I loved the reading experience of this book. It rotates between two different stories. One is the story of a Japanese schoolgirl named Nao who is struggling with some really serious bullying and suicidal thoughts and just a really difficult home life. And then there's Ruth, who finds Nao's diary in plastic bags washed up on the beach in the island that she lives in North America. And it's her reading the diary and kind of how she interprets it and how it fits into her life. This was such a beautiful book that is very thoughtful and philosophical at times. It has a lot to say just about being alive and about being a person, and I found it really moving and interesting. It also has this metafictional aspect to the end, which I really enjoyed. I would definitely recommend this one. It's one that I want to reread in the future. Then I read Where the Words End and My Body Begins by Amber Dawn. This is a book of poetry. I enjoyed this one. I didn't love it, but I think that's partly just because I don't read a lot of poetry. There were some lines that did really speak to me, and I really think it's just personal taste that this one didn't completely click with me. I have a review at the Lesbury, I will link it below, but if you're interested in queer feminist poetry, I would still definitely recommend picking this one up. And then I read The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. This is a very short book that's told in a series of vignettes, so basically you just get these little glimpses into the life of a Latina girl growing up in Chicago. Even though you only get little snippets of her life, they're really effective at communicating a bigger picture. I definitely enjoyed reading this one. My favorite read of the month was Lost Boy by Sassafras Lowry. This is a queer punk retelling of Peter Pan, and I think that will immediately tell you whether you're interested in picking it up or not. It definitely lived up to the premise for me. The adaptation is incredibly well done, from the crocodile being a metaphor for drug use to the pigeons being fairies, and even scenes and lines from the book that are seamlessly incorporated into a completely different context. This worked really well. And then the world of this book in itself, which is a group of queer homeless youth who are in this 24/7 kink relationship, it's just stunning and so thought-provoking. Sassafras Lowry also edited a book before this called Kicked Out, which is about queer youth experiences with homelessness, so Z really knows what Z's talking about, and it definitely comes through in this book. It's not just a gimmick. This is actually acknowledging the realities of being a queer homeless youth, even in this almost fantastical setting. It doesn't just use their situations as a prop in the story. I loved reading this, and I loved looking at all the different aspects and talking about it afterwards. It gives a lot of things to discuss. Again, I'll link the Lesbury review down below, but this is a complex, fascinating book. Definitely highly recommended. One of my favorites that I've read this year. Then I read The Land by Mildred Taylor. This was a gift from Patricia at Walk in the Woods. Thank you so much, Patricia. I loved reading this. This is a historical young adult book. It's set in the US just after the Civil War. Paul, the main character, is the son of a slave owner and a slave. He was raised recognized by his white father, which is unusual. It's basically just the story of him trying to make it in a violently racist society, especially his pursuit of land to call his own. I loved this, and it really kind of made me think of Little House on the Prairie and how many people read that for kind of that survivalist making it on the land feel, but how incredibly racist those books are. It made me think that this would be a great counterpoint to that, because it also has that making it on the land survivalist feel, but it's a super anti-racist story and really examines racism. I also really liked reading the afterword and discovering how much of this is a true story. I'll definitely be picking up more of Mildred Taylor's books. The last book I read this month was Kinship, The Way of Thorn and Thunder, the first book in that series by Daniel Heath Justice. I picked this book up because Casey at Casey the Canadian Lesbian wrote a rave review about this book and the other books in the series, and she spoke so highly of it that I immediately picked it up. And I knew that it would be a little bit difficult to get into because in her review she says that it is fantasy and that it can be a little bit difficult to get into if you're not used to that. So I was expecting that, but unfortunately it never really clicked for me. And again, I know this is just personal taste. The world in this book is incredible. It's so richly imagined, and you can tell that Daniel Heath Justice has thought of a huge amount of history and backstory. It also weaves in First Nations, specifically Cherokee references. What I found jarring about this book was that it was told from so many different perspectives. I feel like I never really got enough time with any one character to get connected to them. It made it feel scattered to me, but again, this is totally personal taste. I think if you're used to high fantasy style books, you'd probably like this one. It has a bisexual main character. The world building is great, and I loved the native take on fantasy. I think that I would love to see more books like this, but definitely check out Casey's review if you're interested though, because just because it didn't quite work for me doesn't mean that you wouldn't like it. That was everything I read this month. Thank you for watching. Bye!